We are a great and prosperous nation. In fact, we are the wealthiest nation in the world. We have so much to be thankful for in this nation. So why are we so rich? Why do we have so much money? Why are we so better off than other nations? Are we just better human beings than these other nations? What's made us different? We're not better human beings. We're just the same as everyone else. What's made us different is our history. What's made us different is our American heritage. Now, if we look into our history and see what the real source of this prosperity which we experience and indulge in today is, we will see that it's not the natural resources of our nation. Yes, we have many natural resources, but that is not the source of our prosperity. The source of our prosperity has truly been the ingenuity and the creativity of our people in this free nation. And let there be emphasis on free nation, because the fact of the matter is, it is the autonomy that's allotted to the people of our democratic society that truly is enabled to produce creativity. So at the offset, I want to make it very clear that there is a very real source of our prosperity and our wealth. However, we must also understand the intricacies that have evolved within our economy over time. There's a commercial that's been out there for some time for Lending Tree. Now, most of you have probably seen this commercial. What happens is that there's a man who goes around and says everything he's involved in, everything he has. He says, I have a swimming pool, I have a big house, I'm part of the country club, and this and that and this and that. But when you see him riding on the lawnmower, he says, but I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. Somebody help me. That man was only able to have those things because he pushed his debt, because he pushed it as far as it could go. That man may have had some amount of money, but he was not rich like he made himself out to be. This is a very real picture, not just of where that man was, but where our nation is truly. Having a loan isn't bad, but it's when we're looking at a gross imbalance of this loaning industry. It's when we look at a gross imbalance of this lending industry. It's when we look at this gross imbalance of this debt, which we experience, not just on an individual level, but on the national level. This is when it becomes not just a problem, but a disaster. Let's take a moment to look at all the different kinds of debt that our nation is in. First of all, there's the big debt that everyone knows about, the national debt, the federal deficit, okay? Everyone knows about that. That's one kind of debt. That's the collective debt of our nation's government, right? Okay, then we have the individual debt, okay? The social debt, the micro debt. So we have the micro debt and the macro debt, okay? And when I say micro debt, I'm talking about the debt that each person has. Like, I know a woman, for example, she's in $80,000 worth of debt, and she really doesn't even make that much a month. And we all know people who we can use as an example. Oh, they're in debt, they're in debt, they're in debt. The reason why we can use so many examples of people who are in debt is because we live in a culture that is completely based off of living beyond our means. Then thirdly, we have to understand and we have to recognize a third kind of debt. There's the micro debt, there's the macro debt, and then there's the international debt. Yes, not many Americans know, but we are vastly in debt to other nations. People say, well, don't we give money to this country and that country and that country? How are we in debt to other nations? Yes, it's true, we give a lot of money to different countries. Like in the news, when a disaster happens, you'll see us giving this money or that money. But I'm here to tell you that that money was given from money we borrowed from somebody else. So basically in that commercial, what happens is the man has two different options. Either one, he can get a loan, which will hopefully have lower interest rates and lower payment rates than he was making previously, which obviously it's a Lending Tree commercial, or the second option he has is honestly filing for bankruptcy. Tell me this, what kind of sense does it make for that man to have that beautiful house, to have those beautiful cars, to even be part of the country club? What use is that if he's this close to filing for bankruptcy? Well, I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that our nation, America, is in this very situation, with one exception. This man is more fortunate than our nation, because this particular man, he can go to Lending Tree, or he can go to any other company, and he can get himself bailed out. Our nation does not have the same option. Because we are the richest country in the world, there is no single lender that has the money that could possibly bail us out. People will say, what's wrong with our economy? Oh, look at the stock market. It keeps going up. It keeps hitting highs. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. We're prospering. We're growing. We're just getting bigger and better, and that's all there is to it, especially in this age of technological revolution. What's wrong? I'm sure you can tell me how strong the economy is. But you know what? That's exactly what people thought in 1929. Something very important happened in 1929. Something really great in U.S. history, or should I say really terrible. What happened was the stock market crashed and introduced what we know as the Great Depression. No other time in American history do we see it as darkly as the Great Depression. Although it was a terrible time, it wasn't bad enough that America was not able to bring itself back up. Ever since the Great Depression, historians have always looked back and wondered and tried to figure out what exactly went wrong. Where did things go awry with the economy? Because at the time, if you look at documentaries, I talk to people who were alive at the time, they say it was the most beautiful, most glorious time, most optimistic age in America. Stock markets were hitting highs that were never seen before. It seemed like every week there were new highs, new highs, new highs. There was no going down, only going up. But where did this growth come from? Where did this growth in the stock market come from? Where it came from, more than anything, was speculative investing. Now, what needs to be understood about speculative investing is that in this situation, in these years, in the mid and late 1920s, what happened here is there was so much money invested into companies through stocks that the stocks were gaining their value not according to the actual value of the company, but they were gaining their value according to their popularity. Now, their popularity can increase or decrease in a day. The value of the company may stay the same, but the value of the stock will go up or go down according to how much people perceive that it's good or bad. Again, this is what speculation is. Is the stock going to go up? Is it going to go down? And it's more than anything kind of a superstitious matter. It needs to be understood that it is this, speculative investing, which, among many other things, opened the way for the crash of 1929. Now, at the time, in this environment of supercilious confidence, everybody thought everything was good. If I'm putting in my money and other people are putting in their money, our money's just going to go up, right? That's the idea. This supercilious confidence was ultimately the origin of a paranoid fear. It was clear to everybody in the day that the money was being made because everybody else was putting in the money. Money is being made because everyone else is putting in money. Therefore, this person is making money based on what everybody else is doing. Now, so long as everybody trusted everyone else, this system worked out okay and everybody made money, right? However, as soon as there was a seed of paranoia, as soon as there was some reason to not have confidence but have fear in the economy as a whole, that's when we started to see higher volatility in fluctuations in the market that had not been seen before. Around through the year of 1929 and the year previous, there were certain drops that nobody could really explain. They just happened. Certain drops that happened in a day. Then they would gradually go back up and go higher, so nobody really thought much of them. What happened is those drops in the economy, even though it didn't hit rock bottom, those drops were like tremors. Tremors before a major earthquake. Does this look familiar? Does this not look like what I was talking about? Stocks up as markets volatility grows. Here we have on one side high stocks, and on the other side higher volatility, which isn't good. It means it's less predictable. It means it's harder to decipher. What this implies to me is that on one hand, even though we have so much confidence, there's fear. When you have confidence, overzealous confidence, and when you have fear in this system of speculative investing, that is where you get our problems. The stock market volatility is something that this current day has in common with the year of 1929. However, there is a major difference between this day and that day. What is it? Well, when I was talking to a friend of mine about this, what happened was, the guy said, well, you know, back in the day with the New Deal and stuff, there was regulations put in place so that the stock market can't crash like it did before and stuff like that and this and that. And he said that it just won't happen. Things are set in place, regulations and rules are set so that just won't happen. Well, he was partly right. There is internal law, there is intrinsic law, there is national law within the U.S. about those sorts of things. That's true. However, that law does not equally exist internationally. And what we do see in this day that we didn't see then is an incredible amount of international investment in our nation. Yes, think of our nation, think of America as one big business, one big company. And think of everybody investing in this business. Everybody's investing in this business, so the stock goes up. The stock goes up, it keeps going up, it keeps going up. And at some point, it starts to fluctuate. People get scared, think, is it going to still go up, or is it going to go down some? Ladies and gentlemen, at some point, paranoia does take control. There's two indicators by which we may study this international speculation that, whether you know it or not, does in fact exist. The first indicator that we have is the growing trade deficit. What the trade deficit represents is how much more other countries own us than we own of other countries. And the fact that this is growing at an exponential rate should be very alarming. This is the first indicator. Now, the second indicator are the investment funds of nations. These are the things that kind of go under the radar as far as deficits. Because what happens is investment funds of different nations are investing in our economy. And it says in this particular article right here, which they hold up to $2.5 trillion in our market. Now, please think about that. $2.5 trillion in our market. Is that not significant? Now, we look at these funds, we look at these trusts and whatnot, and many of which are owned not privately, but nationally, by governments. What I'm telling you here is this, and it's not complex, it's very simple. The rules and the laws that we have within our nation to protect ourselves from ourselves are not necessarily applicable in any large or meaningful way on the international scale. What we need to understand right now is that what happened in 1929 was derived intrinsically. However, what we have now is not an intrinsic economy, we have an extrinsic economy. This is the age of international economic interdependence, and the US is the chief agent of this. I have every reason to hope and pray that this economy will not fall, that it will do nothing but go on to prosper. Let me be clear, I'm not a pessimist. I really believe in our economy, and I definitely believe in capitalism. However, there's some very important things that America needs to understand. Realists are exactly what they needed before 1929. If there were realists who really spoke out, if people listened before 1929, perhaps, maybe, that could have been stopped. That's all I'm trying to do right now.